Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, this is Samugi, and today we're going to continue our journey of talking about the Tyranid Codex. Now, I know it's been a while, and Chapter Approved finally dropped. There's some unit changes which can alter how I feel about each individual unit. So if you watch my HQ, Elite, and Troop video, there might be some changes in between. I will make a comprehensive video later on to talk about the individual unit that I feel worthy to talk about. So with that out of the way, let's get started, alright? Let's get started talking about the fast attack and flyer choice of the Tyranid army. Because the reason I combine both of them together is because there isn't that much of a fast attack unit to talk about. So just gonna combine them all together in this one short video. Alright, so let's get started. So the first fast attack unit that we see is the Gargoyles. Now, I know that Gargoyle hasn't been pretty popular. I mean, there's some people using them and find it's actually to be pretty okay when it comes to Maelstrom missions, because Maelstrom missions emphasize more on mobility than efficiency. So if we're talking about just playing Eternal War and just killing the enemy, just outshoot each other, then Gargoyle is obviously not as a good pick here. But Gargoyle is a 6-point per model unit. Alright, the weapon doesn't cost anything. It's flesh forward. It has exact same stat as a Termagant, except it can move 12 inches, and it also has like a blinding venom melee attack, which if you successfully inflict a wound, an unsaved wound on the enemy, you can actually have a -1 to hit debuff applied to the said enemy. But this thing only happens in melee combat, so shooting it with your flash borer is not gonna help. Alright, otherwise the flash borer stratagem is gonna really do something here. But unfortunately, that's not the case. You can only trigger this ability by melee attack, which with only strength 3, alright, and 1 attack per model, and weapon skill of a 4, you can't expect it to actually land any sort of wound, given that in the current 8th edition that any sort of strength is allowed to wound any toughness. So it doesn't matter if your toughness 8, doesn't matter if you double my strength, I will still be able to wound you on the 6. So it doesn't really matter, right? But even with that put into consideration, it is still not a very applicable strategy for using Gargoyle as your -1 to hit debuff applying machine, because first of all, it's 6 points per piece. Alright, so if you take like 30 of them, which you probably should because you want to increase the odd of applying the -1 to hit debuff, right? So with 6 model, alright, 6 per model and 30 unit, that's 30 model per unit, that's 180 point for the entire unit, which doesn't seem like a lot, but now you have to consider that they are a fast attack choice. Alright, if Gargoyle happens to be a troop choice, then everything changes. They will suddenly become like the best troop choice because they're fast, they're versatile, and they can actually apply the -1 to hit debuff, which is okay, I think, but it's unfortunately it is fast attack. Alright, we want to fill most of our troop choices. We don't really need a fast attack role to be filled. Alright, even if we're talking about filling a brigade detachment, because there's still Spore Mine, which is way cheaper than Gargoyles when it comes to fulfilling brigade detachment. Alright, so that's pretty much it about Gargoyles. The Gargoyles also contains the similar ability as Termagant, where if you have more than 20 models in the unit, you can re-roll the wound rolls of 1 when you attack with shooting weapons. Alright, so unfortunately, once again, this does not apply to the blinding venom, which is a melee attack. If this thing also applies to melee attack, I can sort of see there's some uses, because you can re-roll 1s to wound, then you indirectly increase the odd of you rolling a 6 to wound. But unfortunately, this only applies to shooting, so yeah, there's that. However, the good thing I can say about Gargoyles is that with the chapter approved new missions, be it Eternal War or Maelstorms, now it has heavy emphasis on certain unit keywords to capturing the objective. There's some chapter approved let's take the Eternal War for example. Alright, the Eternal War for example, there is a mission that requires a unit with fly keyword to capture the objective. and usually they're comparing like the amount of model counts. So Gargoyle suddenly becomes a pretty solid choice here. If you're playing new chapter approved mission, Gargoyle might see the light of day because first of all, it has the fly keyword, and second of all, it's very numerous. You can get a lot of large quantity of Gargoyle, which also have fly keyword. Not a lot of faction can say they have the capability to do so, because in the latest chapter approved mission, it doesn't. The troop, some mission troops are discounted. Like in some missions, the troop doesn't really matter. You know, they only want fly keyword or character keyword or certain other keywords. So if you bring Gargoyle in those kind of missions, you know, you can try your luck. Then the enemy can never take that objective away from you because it's only exclusive to unit with fly keyword. And then you compare how many the numbers of the model you have within the proximity of the objective, which, you know, with the number of Gargoyle, you obviously outnumber the enemy's fly keyword unit. So that's something to think about. Gargoyle might be okay in the latest chapter approved mission, but in general play, let's say if you're still playing the big rulebook Eternal War mission, then yeah, it's not that great. It is not that great. So that's pretty much it about Gargoyle. Let's move on to the Ravener. Now Ravener, I think I expressed my thought about this unit already. You've probably heard enough. I mean, if this is like the first time you watch this video, then I'll just talk again about Raveners. Raveners are good in one aspect. If you put it inside a Yoramagon detachment, and then you use it as sort of like a deep striking beacon for your unit, because with the exclusive stratagem, the enemy below, you're able to use Ravener, Trigon Prime, and Moloch to take an infantry unit that's also Yoramagon. Take a Yoramagon infantry unit, then deep strike it with the set unit, the Ravener, Trigon Prime, and Moloch. You can deep strike with them, and it's not just limited to one. You know, like for each unit, you spend one command point for it. So let's say if you want to bring a unit of Zoanthropes as well as a unit of, let's say, Shock Cannon Hive Guards, then you spend 2 command points in conjunction with, let's say, a squad of Ravener, alright, which you pay 69 points because that's the minimum cost of 3 Raveners, which is the minimum size of the unit, just like Warriors. 69 point plus 2 command point, you get to transport 2 different infantry unit from the same Hive Fleet to deep strike, which you basically allow some of the traditional unit that's not allowed to deep strike, you allow them to deep strike with this stratagem. That's the most common use of Ravener I've seen. There's also other ways. Let's say if you want to aim for the turn 1 deep strike, if you want to just pop a Ravener out and then attempt to assault in that same turn, then Behemoth is probably the better choice here, because Behemoth allows you to reroll the charge distance, which, since you always pop out 9 inches away from the enemy, Kraken's not going to help here because you cannot advance after you deep strike, and Leviathan's not going to help either. Same thing with Yoramagon. That's not going to help that much if you're aiming to turn 1 deep strike. Behemoth is the key here, actually. If you deep strike a group of Ravener, let's say if you really want to have some sort of ways to deal with the enemy shooting Guardsmen, which is their bubble wrapping unit. If you want to deal with the bubble wrapping unit, Ravener is not a bad pick. I mean, it's 23 point per model, which is exactly same as, which is only 3 point higher than a Naked Warrior, which is double sizing talent, which is also the gear that the Ravener comes with, the default gear. Now, people might ask, like, what sort of weapon do you want to arm your Ravener? My answer to that is, since it only has Blizzard skill of 4, I would refrain from taking any sort of ranged weapon. That's the first thing I will say. Don't take any ranged weapon. It's just simply not worth it. Maybe Spine Fist, because Spine Fist is a little bit different here. It's a pistol weapon, which means you can still shoot it even in melee combat, and it's dependent on the amount of attack you have on the wielder, which is 4 attack per model. So if you have 3 Raveners, their pistol can shoot for 12 times. Alright, so they can shoot, alright, they can shoot, assault in, and then during next turn, when it's enemy's turn, in the shooting phase, you can shoot them again. You can shoot, and then, well, actually, no, you can't shoot them. But in next turn, in next of your turn, and if you somehow didn't break the fight, if the enemy did not retreat for some reason, then you can still shoot and then attack. You can do that, alright? So, now, maybe you can take Spine Fist, but I still wouldn't recommend it. I say just keep it clean. Keep it with just 2 pairs of Size and Talon, which gives them 1 extra attack, make them 5 attack per model, which is really impressive, actually. If you think about it, Warriors cost 20 points, right? Okay, Ravener costs 23 points. So essentially, you're really paying for the deep strike capability, as well as 12-inch movement speed, but you lose 1 armor. You lose 1 armor. You lose Synapse ability, right? So you pay extra 3 points for that kind of trade-off. You get a unit that's really fast, okay, but mind you, they still have instinctive behavior. So if you attempt to charge any unit that's not the closest visible unit to the Ravener, then you might suffer some instinct behavior penalty, which usually doesn't happen, because if you pop out next to the enemy, let's say you pop out next to like a bubble wrapping guards, you're charging the bubble wrapping guards anyway. I mean, that's the job of Ravener. Your job is to deal with the bubble wrap, because Ravener with strength 4 and 5 attack with Size and Talon, which allows them to reroll ones to hit, are designed to kill weak armor unit. Alright, Gene Stealers are there to kill heavy armor unit like Space Marine Devastators or Chaos Havoc. Those kind of unit, leave it to Gene Stealers. But if we're talking about like Kotas, if we're talking about Guardsmen, Termagants, Fire Warriors, you know, those kind of unit, leave it to Raveners. Raveners can do it pretty well. Just put it in Behemoth, or maybe just leave it Kraken and then just run all the way up to the battlefield. I mean, they have 12-inch movement, and if they advance 3d6, okay, even though they cannot charge after advancing, but if you cast Onslaught on top of them, they suddenly can. So if you take a lot of Raveners, alright, I wouldn't recommend this, but if you really want to play Ravener, you can do this. Put them in Kraken, alright, take maybe at least 6 model per unit, at least 6 model, because if it only takes 3 model per unit, then might as well not take them, because that's kind of like designed for deep striking, and treat them as like a minimal tax for deep striking. But if you want to use Ravener to actually kill bubble wrap unit, I would recommend to take at least 6 model per unit. Use Kraken. In movement phase, obviously use opportunity advance to allow them to double their advance roll, and then cast Onslaught on top of them. Allows them to charge after advancing, and then just kill the bubble wrapping unit, which, once again, you know, I'm not saying this unit is bad, I'm just saying, once again, Gene Stealers can do that job much better. So you see where this is going, right? If you're going to use Ravener as like your bubble wrapping killing unit, then why not just take something else? You know, like take, I mean, how Gene Stealers can do the job, Hormigons can sort of do the job too, that even though their point is not killing, more like tie down the enemy. Ravener is kind of like the oddball here. It's like somewhere in between Gene Stealers and Hormigons. You know, it's fast, you can deep strike it, and it requires a nap. So it's like somewhere in between, which I don't really recommend if you play it that way. So like I said, if you want to play Ravener, if you like the model, think it's cool, the most competitive way right now, so far, are the Yoramagon Deep Striking Anchor. You can do that. You can use them as anchor, deep strike, and bring another infantry Yoramagon unit, and then reap the whole benefit. Like, just imagine that, like, infantry, alright? You'd be thinking, like, okay, fine, infantry, like, no big deal. And it's not like I can bring, like, a monster, like Carnifex or Tyrannofex, so what's the big deal? But, like I said in my Elite video, if you can bring Zoanthrope, you immediately solved the biggest problem of Zoanthrope, which is they are not allowed to smite anything that's not a bubble wrap. Because if you just walk your Zoanthrope out to the field, you're only gonna be able to smite all the bubble wrapping unit. Alright, but if you deep strike it within the bubble wrap, you might be able to smite something else. Alright, same thing goes with Pyrovore. Pyrovore, if you use Yoramagon and deep strike them with your Ravener, which is really great because like Ravener does not provide synapse, but that doesn't really matter for Pyrovore because their weapon automatically hit anyway, and they only have 3 models per unit, so you won't have to worry about morale test. So yeah, that's pretty much it about how Ravener works. So that's I think I would just briefly talk about the Red Terror. Red Terror is kind of like a one model per army kind of deal. It's like kind of like a Brute Lord for Raveners. It gives bonus for the nearby Raveners, so if you want to play Raveners, like I said, like the Behemoth way or the Kraken way, then the Red Terror might be okay choice, because you want to play a Ravener themed army. You don't have to like take 18 of them. You don't have to, you know, because Ravener's fast attack on like Warriors, which does not have a limit of rule of 3, but Ravener actually does have a limit. So let's say if you want to take, crap, that's, holy shit, that's a lot, man. That's 27 Raveners, but usually that probably will not happen. If you really want to play like a Ravener based army, let's say if you take 2 squad of 6, like 2 squads in a total of 12, and then you slap the Red Terror next to them, and then just deep strike it with Behemoth, and then attempt to assault in that same turn, then the Red Terror might do something. Because Red Terror gives +1 to hit in the 5 phase for friendly Ravener, which, you know, the Ravener already has 3+ weapon skill. If you bump them up to a 2+, that'll be even better. So the Red Terror, the Swallow a Hole, it's kind of weird. I mean, it's okay for character hunting for like company commanders, like Tau battlesuit commanders. You can probably try to attempt to swallow a hole, but like usually that doesn't happen. So yeah, that's pretty much it about Raveners. It's a Ravener buffing machine for the Red Terror, and then if you really want to play that way, then my recommend is Behemoth or Kraken. Alright, Kraken is probably better because you don't have to create like a extra detachment specifically for Behemoth, because that's a waste of detachment, right? You could have like slipped something else. You don't have to put like an extra Behemoth detachment. You can probably put it in your existing Kraken detachment if you want to play it that way, and use it as like a threatened unit to your opponent. So let's say if you're playing against your opponent, you can decide whether you want to deep strike your Ravener or not. Alright, so if you're facing like Imperial Guard with all your bubble wrapping out, right, then you might want to consider just deep strike and then attempt to charge. But if not, then just use the 3d6 advance from Kraken high fleet rule, and then just walk it up all the way with just advancing. Alright, so that's it for Raveners. Now let's talk about the Spores. Not sure how I pronounce this, but I think it's Mucloid. Yeah, people can correct me if I say it wrong. So Mucloid, Spores, and Spore Mines. Now Mucloid Spores is 20 point per model. I think it's 30 point per model for Mucloid Spores. It's like a big spore, I believe. Mucloid Spores. And yeah, it's 20 point per model. Alright, so Mucloid Spores 20 point per model, while Spore Mine is 30 point for 3 models. Right, so on the surface, you might want to compare. Okay, so if I want to bring Spore Mines, right? If I want to bring the cheapest Spore Mine, which one do I pick? I mean, the obvious answer is Mucloid, because Mucloid only costs 20 point per model. So if you just want to fulfill a cheap brigade detachment, then obviously pick the Mucloid. But in practice, I would say that the Spore Mines is actually better. If you just closely look at their stat and their mortal wound dealing capability, you can see why. Now, you're paying 20 points for, on average, about these 3 mortal wounds, which is 2, right? But for Spore Mines, that you're paying 30 points for 3, and each Spore Mine, on average, deals 1 mortal wound. So, in a sense, that the Spore Mines, it only costs 10 points more, but it deals 1 extra mortal wound, on average, of course, right? On average. And obviously, you have to think about, like, the Mucloid Spores has toughness 3 and has 2 extra wounds to compare to the actual normal Spore Mine, but that doesn't really matter, because the whole point of Spore Mine is to distract your enemy from shooting your frontline unit, right? So if you want to play the Spore Mine individually, which I don't really recommend, alright, usually I talk about this, it's because if you use Biovore to shoot them, you have to remember their stats, because when Biovore shoot with their weapon, and if they miss, then you will spawn a Spore Mine, not like a Mucloid Spore. So you will probably get in contact with Spore Mine more often than Mucloid Spore, alright? So usually there's no point taking them individually. Usually they come up with, again, Biovore or Spore Assist. They come from these 2 sources, or Harpy, right? Harpy can drop it as well. So yeah, that's pretty much it about the Spore Mine, and I think I talked enough about Spore. It's because most people watching this video probably already know what Spore Mine does. You know, like they float down on the one, and if they end up within 3 inches of a assault phase, which I have to remind you, that doesn't mean you have to charge them. Okay, you don't have to charge them. You can actually advance into the enemy. Obviously, you cannot do that the turn you float down from the sky, because you cannot advance. It's end of the movement phase. You can't advance again. That's a written FAQ. But if the enemy fails to deal with your Spore can only move 3 inches per turn, right? Which is pretty minimum. And if you drop them down by natural way, like they can only drop 12 inches away from the enemy. So if you only move 3 and attempt to charge, then you probably need to roll a 6. And that's assuming you survive the Overwatch, which you're probably not likely to be able to. Alright, so what you do is, if the enemy ignores you the turn you float down, right? So next turn, when you get to move your Spore Mine, you advance them and put your Spore Mine in Kraken detachment, because 3d6 advancing is cool. Now you might be thinking about, wait, hold on a second, why advance? Why not charge? Now if you read the rule carefully, it says as long as you're ending your Spore Mine within 3 inches at the end of the assault phase, then you can trigger the detonation. That doesn't, I don't have to charge you. I should just need to advance so far that I'm within 3 inches of you. By the end of the assault phase, then I can detonate. I don't have to charge you. I can just advance it, right? But again, if the turn you float down, you're not allowed to advance. So maybe you might want to attempt to charge on the same turn. Maybe you can. Let's say your Biovore shoot the Spore Mines and shoot the Spore Mine, and then they miss. You will spawn a Spore Mine in the shooting phase, right? At the end of the shooting phase. Now, in the assault phase, you can use the Spore Mine to attempt to assault the enemy unit. Alright, you can attempt to assault and see what happens. If you're using Spore Mines, the priority assault target is probably Devastated Marine with Last Cannon. Alright, anything with low quantity of fire counts is going to be great. Alright, anything with low quantity is awesome. Anything with a large quantity, like let's say Assault Cannon, Heavy Bolter, is probably not ideal target to charge your Spore Mine with. Right? You want to charge the Last Cannon, since they snapshot. It only hit. The Overwatch only hit on 6, so you have less chance to hit you. And if they hit you, then so be it. The Spore Mine came from Biovore. It's free anyway, right? You basically pay nothing. Well, you pay for the Biovore. You don't really pay anything. If you miss, you spawn Spore Mine and you become a nuisance for your enemy. Alright, so that's it about mines. Alright, so today I said I'd talk about fast attack, but that's kind of short, so I want to make it a little bit let's say longer. Alright. Poor word choice here. Okay, anyways, let's talk about the flyer, alright, the Harpy and the Hive Chrome. Now, Harpy and Hive Chrome got significant point drop in this chapter approved. And now this is actually a good chance to talk about them, because now they got point updated. I don't have to, correct them once I said something wrong about them. So let's start with the unit I actually like, Harpy. Alright, Harpy, I love it. Harpy back in the day wasn't bad, it just does not have enough stat to support its cost. Right, back in the day, it's like 170 something point. If you take Venom Cannon, right, Heavy Venom Cannon, which is really expensive for a model with toughness 6, 12 wounds, and like no hard to hit, and you're in the flyer category, for fuck's sake, right? You don't have fucking hard to hit. All flyer, like I said in like a lot of time in forums, I said it's not that Harpy and Hive Chrome sucks. It's just all flyer sucks in this edition, well, except fucking Eldar flyer, because they're OP. And Dark Eldar as well. Like, Eldar flyer is probably the only flyer that doesn't suffer from the same fate, but even then there is like Orc mech gun that's designed to ignore the minus one to hit from the hard to hit, so that doesn't really matter anymore. So flyer pretty much take a nosedive down to the bottomless pit, because that's what flyer is in this edition. They were OP back in 7th edition, but not anymore. Alright, they lose the ability to force the enemy to snapshot. So now they only have -1 to hit, and Harpy and Hive Chrome doesn't even have that. So you can see why they are not very popular. Now since the point has been dropped, alright, if you look at Harpy, it's toughness 6, 12 wound, 4+ armor save. It's pretty similar to a Moloch stat line. Moloch have similar stat line, except Moloch have 3+ armor save instead of 4+. But then again, Harpy doesn't really care about that because it can fly 30-inch per turn, assuming it didn't take any damage, alright, for the degrading to happen. Now, let's not talk about weapon. Let's talk about the Spore Mine ability, because this is what makes Harpy interesting. Not only it's able to carry a Tyranid bio cannon, it can also drop up to 3 Spore Mine per turn. So this is how it works. You move your Harpy from point A to point B. Now the 30-inch that you fly over is if there's any enemy in between, you can drop a Spore Mine for each enemy you flew over. So it has to be a straight line. So it's like a strafing run. So it's like you run right through the enemy and then you end on the outer edge of the table, all right? And then you flew through 3 enemy, which you would drop 3 Spore Mines. Now this is what happens, okay? So if you roll a 4+, the Spore Mine will hit, and then you continue with the Spore Mine mortal wound damage table, which 1 it's a fail, 2 to 5 it's a 1 mortal wound, and 6 is D3 mortal wound, etc. You know, you play it by the same rule. But if you miss, let's say you miss the 4+, the first 4+ you miss, what happens? You spawn a Spore Mine next to the targets. Now this is really interesting because unlike Biovore, alright, which, you know, Biovore also hit on 4+, okay, but if you bring Harpy, you can fly up to 3 units, where Biovore can only shoot 1 Spore Mine per turn, right? But Harpy, by simply just moving across the model, they get to drop up to 3. You know, assuming you pass through 3 models, then you can drop up to 3. But if you only flew through like maybe 1, then you can only drop 1. So it really depends on how many units you're able to fly, flew over. All right. So now the Spore Mine is pretty interesting. All right. Now the Spore Mine is been said. Let's talk about the weapons. All right. The weapon choice is pretty obvious. You know, heavy venom cannon is good against tanks, while Stranglethorn cannon is better against horde infantry, such as Orc Boys, Imperial Guardsmen, or maybe ourselves, Hormagons, and maybe Genestealers too, because they have more than 10 models. And more than 10 models means +1 to Blizzard skill for Stranglethorn cannon. Okay, so what weapon would I recommend for Harpy? Now, I think in the current meta, and in the coming meta, Swarm is going to be a thing. Okay, I'm just making a bold statement here, but I think it's going to come true. And if I'm not wrong, then I think it already came true. Okay, it's that Swarm is going to slowly push the night meta out, and then capturing objective with countless amount of bodies is going to be the key way to play in mission. Like I said in previous video, if you play as a Swarm army, you will lose battles, but you will win the war. You will lose the battle, you will lose a lot of casualties. You can't win the gunfight, but that doesn't really matter. You have 180 Termagants on the field. You don't have to worry about that. You can just take the point, hold it, and with the new chapter approved Eternal War and Maelstrom, which the sudden death is cancelled if you play chapter approved mission, of course. But if you do play, losing everything, getting tabled does not mean you automatically lose. If you've been using your unit, organize them in a way that you capture as many objectives or score as many victory points as possible in the previous turns, it doesn't matter if you get tabled. If you get tabled and you have more score than your opponent, then you still win. Right? That's why removing sudden death has been a huge impact on Swarm army like Orcs and Tyranids and Imperial Guards. Right? Now, why do we talk about this when I discuss Harpy? It's because Harpy is designed to kill such target. Alright? Stranglethorn cannon is assault d6, strength 7, AP -1, and has a damage of 2. Now, if you, like I said, add 1 to your Blizzard skill, add 1 to hit roll, if you target a unit with 10 or more model. Like I said, the Guardsmen, Orc Boys, Termagants, etc. Alright, maybe Demons, right? So, not only that, okay, you have 2 of them, so it's 2d6. And how much point do you pay for? 143. 143 point for a platform that can deal 2d6 strength 7 AP 1 gun that hit on 3s, Alright, they hit on 3s, and which is also allowed to drop Spore Mines as it passes through the enemy target. I think it's going to be pretty fair. Alright, Harpy, I think it's really close to reaching to the level where competitive play might start seeing Harpy. Alright, and they might start seeing Harpy. But back in the day, the reason why we take Biovore, because I only spend 50 points and I get to spawn a Spore Mine next to your model, which really mess you up. And now you have Harpy, which is 143 point if you take Stranglethorn Cannon, which is less than the count of 3 Biovores. Not only you get to shoot your Stranglethorn Cannon, you also get to drop up to 3 Spore Mine, which is pretty much equivalent to taking 3 Biovores. Right? Thinking that way, the point is fair. It is really fair. Now the only problem that Harpy needs to worry about is survivability. Like, if Harpy wants to survive, you gotta present something even scarier than Harpy. If you just take like a Swarm Army, if you take like Hormigons, Termagants, Gene Stealers, maybe, I don't know, some Hive Guards, and then you get like 1 Harpy on the field, that's not gonna do a lot, you know, because you're not giving your opponents any choices, which I will be discussing in my coming up target priority video, which I already said in the previous target priority video that you have to present enough threat to your enemy to make them choose which unit to shoot at. If you have Harpy, you have Flyrants, you have Carnifex, you have Tyrannofex, Execrate, you have all the big monsters in the field, then your opponent will have to make choices. They'll have to make choices based on what is the biggest threat to them. And most of the time, if you have the unit I said above, like Carnifex, Flyrants, and Tyrannofex, Harpy is not going to be the focus point. It's not going to be the focus point of your opponent, and that's where their survivability comes in, right? If you want to shoot at my Harpy, then okay, fine, so be it. I mean, it's only 140 point, all right? Feel free to shoot it, that's fine. Also, don't forget that Harpy explode on death. I mean, it's not like it triggers very often. It only happens on a 6. But if you flew over enemy and then you stop by next to them and then you die, you might have a chance to deal extra mortal wound. Now, finally, okay, Harpy is able to assault. You know, okay, it has mini weapon, which is strength 6, AP 2, and damage of D3, and you can reroll hit rolls of one of this weapon. It has 3 attacks, which is not a lot. You know, which is not a lot. It's not too scary. But Harpy is probably the only unit for anti-air. Let's say if you don't have any sort of shooting weapons left on the field, Harpy can go in and try to melee the enemy flyer, because it has fly keyword. It's allowed to melee a flyer with supersonic rolls. Right, you're able to do that. Strength 6, AP 2. You know, you probably wound the flyer on the 4+, because most flyer have toughness of 6. So you wound them on 4+, and you have D3 damage and 3 hits. You reroll it once. You probably deal about roughly 3 or 4 damage per turn. I mean, it's not a lot, but who cares, man? I mean, you can already do so much. You can shoot with your Stranglethorn Cannon, you can drop the Spore Mine, and now you get to assault the enemy flyer. I mean, just come on, man. It's like you can do everything. So, now enough with talking about Harpy. I think I made my point clear. I have high hope for this unit. I think this model will start seeing more play, because the point is now pretty fair. If you take in consideration of the point it costs and what it does, it's pretty fair, especially if you play the latest chapter approved missions, which now, like, most people will start bringing more swarm models, alright, whether they can or cannot. Maybe Space Marine will start bringing more scouts, I don't know. But if you walk into Imperial Guards, or if you walk into Tau and maybe ourselves, like Tyranid or Termagants, you will have to have a way to deal with the Horde in some way. You have to find a way to deal with the Horde, alright? Alright, finally, the final point I'm going to make about Harpy is its ability to work with Swarmlord, alright? Now, rule has written that the Swarmlord is allowed to push. Well, I mean, I guess you said push because it's a Hive Commander ability. It allows some unit to move again instead of shooting, which you lose 1 turn of shooting of Harpy, but maybe sometimes it's worth it. What you can do is, here's my hand. All right, let's say this is Harpy, right? This is Swarmlord. and there's enemy in between. So you fly to the Swarm Lord, you drop the mine in the movement phase, alright? And then in the shooting phase, the Swarm will push you back to where you came from, and then you drop the mines again. So you can drop up to 6 mines per turn. Alright, you can do that. But like I said, it's very costly just for Swarm Lord to do that. I mean, Swarm Lord has like much better unit to push to Hive Commander ability over the Harpy. But if dropping Spore Mine is your thing, then you know you can probably try to make this work. Alright, so that's enough of Harpy. Let's talk about the Hive Crone, the last unit I'm going to talk about in this video. So, Hive Crone has similar stat as Harpy. I mean, actually it has the exact same stat as Harpy. Now, Hive Crone has a lot of weapons, alright? Each weapon does pretty different things, alright? Let's talk about Stinger Salvo, right? Stinger Salvo is just treated as like a heavy bolter, you know, like it just comes with the most monster, you know, like Tyranid has it, Harpy has it, you know, like most monster has the Stinger Salvo, so don't treat it as a weapon, just treat it as like a free heavy bolter, you know, it actually has the same stat, strength 5 AP 1, but it's a Soul 4, so a little bit better than heavy bolter, even though it only has a range of 24, but that doesn't matter just because you get to move 30 inch per turn anyway, so range is not an issue for you, right? Stinger Salvo is out of the way. Now let's talk about the Draw Cannon. The Draw Cannon is like a sort of heavy flamer, all right? It's a strength 6 AP 1 Assault D6 weapon that automatically hits the target, so it's a flamer, it's a heavy flamer with strength 6, all right? So Draw Cannon, it's able to burn some guardsmen hiding in the cover out. I mean, it doesn't ignore cover, but automatic hit really helps. Alright, so Assault D6, you probably hit maybe 3 hits per turn-ish on average. And then let's move on to the, I'm not sure how to pronounce this, I think it's Tentacles. Tentacles, yeah, Tentacles. Yeah. Alright, let's talk about Tentacles. Tentacles is probably like the main appeal of this monster. Hive Crone, if Harpy is air to surface attack craft, then Hive Crone is air to air. It has all the tools to fight air units. Alright, so Tentacles, it's a Soul 4 weapon, and it has 36 inches. It's strength 5, AP nothing, and only deals damage of 1. Now don't let the profile fool you. The special ability of Tentacles, alright, if you're targeting this weapon against a unit that can fly, alright, you can reroll fail to hit. In addition, if the target also happens to be a vehicle, which is majority of the flyer, you know, because Demon Prince maybe, and can be flyer as well, but if we're talking about just like solely flyer roll, then Tyranid and Chaos Demon's probably the only one that has it. You know, the majority of flyer are usually vehicle. Now, what you can do is something similar to a Hive Guard Shot Cannon, alright? Which if you roll a wound roll of a 4+, you get to deal 1 mortal damage. Okay, and if you roll a 6+, you get to deal D3. So it's very similar to Hive Guard's weapon, but this weapon allows you to reroll the failed hits against fly keyword, not just flyers, but fly keyword, which means you can use this, alright, against anything that has fly keyword. Maybe Smash Captain from Blood Angel with jump pack. They most definitely will give a jump pack. Maybe some of those Custodes jet bikes, you know, they have fly keyword. Anything that has fly keyword are vulnerable to this, and especially if they're a vehicle. Alright, so this thing also works pretty well against Necron tanks, because Necron tanks, well, not exactly tanks, more like vehicle, because Necron vehicles, they all have fly. They all have fly keyword. Alright, maybe Ghost Strike with DDA, they all have fly keyword. Now they're also vehicles, so if you're targeting them, then you get to deal the mortal damage and reroll the wounds. Alright, and since it's a mortal damage, the quantum shielding does not work. So that's fantastic, right? Finally, let's talk about the Wikus Spur. Now, Wikus Spur is a tail attack. You can only make 1 attack with this weapon, but it does not consume your attack amount. Okay, you have 3 attacks, and the Wikus Spur is in addition to those 3 attacks. So Wikus Spur, it's a strength 8 AP3 D3 damage. I mean, you can only hit it once, so it's not too crazy. But this is work kind of like a mace tail, like a bone mace from Carnifex. This thing also works on flyers. Now, everything is designed to fight enemy vehicle flyers. How does it work? All right. So let's say you're fighting Eldar flyer, which have with all the crazy -1 to hit, right? What you do is, first of all, you use Hive Chrome. You shoot it. You shoot it with your Stinger Salvo, which doesn't matter if it hit or miss. If you hit, then more power to you. But if it doesn't hit, then doesn't matter, right? And then you shoot your Tentacles. Tentacles, yeah. I think I'm saying something wrong. So you shoot your Tentacles, all right, which you get to reroll your hit on. And if it happens to hit it, it doesn't matter what the toughness is, all right. As long as you're rolling a wound roll of a 4 or more, then you get to deal 1 mortal wound. And if you roll a 6, that's D3 mortal wound, all right. That's Tentacles. And then you use your Draw Cannon. Now, Draw Cannon automatically hits the target, so it doesn't matter what kind of modifier you have on your aircraft, especially Eldar aircraft. I automatically hit you, and since I'm a strength 6 AP -1, I won't deal as much damage, but it's D6, it's assault D6. Strength 6, I will wound you on a 4+, and it's -1 AP, so I mean it's extra attack I can do to you. Alright. Finally, I get to charge you. When I charge you, alright, I will use my Wikus Spur tail attack to attack you first. I will swing my Strength 8 AP3 D3 damage weapon at you, which you will not have any sort of protection against because it's melee attack, it's not shooting attack. Alright, your -1 to hit buff does not work anymore. Now, finally, I still have Sizing Wings, just like Harpy. I still have my basic Strength 6 AP2 D3 attack that I can reroll once to hit. Alright, so add all of that together. Harpy, Hive Chrome doesn't seem like a bad unit. It's designed to go toe-to-toe with enemy flyer. Dedicated flyer, of course. I'm talking about just fly keyword. I mean actual flyer, and especially vehicle. Because fighting vehicle has been it's pretty much like a weakness for Tyranids. I mean, in this edition, they introduce a lot of mechanics that designed to counter vehicles, which is awesome, it's fantastic, and there is a lot of vehicle in the current meta, so that's great. But Hive Chrome, ultimately, in the end, I think, unless you're fighting Eldar or Necron, or maybe Tau, but because Tau doesn't take Hammerhead anymore. Yeah, they don't take Hammerhead anymore, so maybe not Tau. Maybe just Necron and Eldar, then Hive Chrome might be okay, because everything here is designed to mitigate the -1 to hit debuff, as well as the quantum shielding. Alright, everything designed to counter all that, because it target vehicle, it target fly keyword, it has a flamer that automatically hits. Obviously, you can use it to hit it on infantry if you want to, but it will also work pretty well on flyer. And Tentacles will actually deal mortal wound to the enemy vehicle, so it doesn't matter if it has invulnerable save or not, it's always a mortal wound. Now, Wikus Spur is like an extra attack in addition to your Sizing Wings. So Hive Chrome, it's designed something like this. You shoot everything you got, and then you charge in, and then you just go in melee with the target. That's pretty much it for the Hive Chrome. Alright, so I think that's it for today. In next video, I'll probably talk about heavy support, which is really exciting because there's a lot of good unit in heavy support slot for Tyranids. Once again, if I said anything wrong, please leave comment and let me know. I will make sure to pin your comment on the top of the page so people will not see all the mistake I made. Anyways, yeah, thank you guys for watching, and please let me know if you need any sort of Tyranid advice, if I dare say, maybe some advice or some suggestions. Feel free to chat with me in the comment section. If you have a list that you need to look over, I'm more than happy to do it for you for absolutely nothing, because I just love the list doctoring. I love doing that. Alright? So yeah, that's pretty much it for the video today. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Goodbye!